We are back live here on our big broadcast. We are coast to coast and border to border on iHeartRadio and also AM/FM 247.com. Tune in, iTunes, and of course you can find us on Spotify as well. And Dianne Collins is with us. She joins us live here via the old Skype, the old Skype-a-rooney. And so, Dianne, you are fantastic as always. I don't think you ever age. And how are you today, my friend?
I'm really well. I have to tell you, I was talking to an astrologer yesterday, and I said, oh, what's happening with my planets in the new, coming up? And she said, oh, well, that means aging. I was like, so it's so funny you say that. I say, well, I'm trying to be youthing, working on that.
Well, I'll tell you, that Mercury retrograde wreaked a little bit of havoc on us during the election season, it seemed like. So talk to us about your latest project, because you've got all sorts of things going on, my friend.
I do have all sorts of things, but I want to talk about something. Mastery, okay?
Okay.
I realize that with all this craziness going on in the world and all these changes, and the way that people talk about it is that we're in a great shift, and a lot of the ancient wisdom prophecies have been about this, whether it was the indigenous cultures, whether possibly in the Bible, all these prophecy about this time where we're going to go to literally a higher consciousness, a better place for humanity. And that affects, of course, everything on the planet. So as much as we have all these problems that are coming to light today, James, on the good side is that it's time for each of us to go to a new place. Now, my work in quantum think is really, I call it a mastery practice. So what does it mean? It means, if anything today, we need to be able to have some command, mastery with our own mind. And so all of my work, Quantum Think, the system of thinking, I have the book, Do You Quantum Think? I'm working on, these video programs, Master Your Mind, Master Your Life, because whatever you're doing, and I don't know how many people you have, listeners who are into sports, watch the Golf Masters as we're recording. It was last weekend.
Yep.
And, when I'm a tennis player, my husband and I, for many years, and so it's like those, what about you? Do you have any sports that this is your sport, right?
Pretty much radio and going to the gym is pretty much what I do. That's pretty much what I do.
That's something. We live in a building that has one. I keep trying to work my way down. And when I say down to the gym. But anyway, so anyone who's listening, whatever we're doing, whether you're doing the radio show, whether you're doing whatever the practice is in the gym, if you're playing a sport, whatever we're doing in life, it requires being in that mastery state, that, not to sound too esoteric, but actually being one with what you're doing and clearing the static on the radio of your being, on the radio of your mind, on the radio of your consciousness, to actually clear all that static, all those thoughts that we have, those stray thoughts, those unwanted thoughts. So I wanted to really, offer a principle that I think can help everyone be able to literally in an instant get in touch with your own thoughts in a new way, that you're actually in command, so that you can go back to that mastery's place, so you can make that solid, putt, so that you can make that shot, so that you can do that extra repetition, So really, that's where I'm focused on right now, really putting that message out about mastery of the mind.
We've got Dianne Collins with us today. Quantum Think is the latest from her. She joins us today here on our big broadcast, and she is amazing. And we love having Dianne Collins on the broadcast. So, break this concept down a little bit more for us.
I will. So what happens is that we have a lot of thoughts, right? Like people call it, that internal voice and that, incessant voice, and you're getting, this can do this, no, don't do that, I like that, I don't like this, what if I can't, what if this, when is this pandemic going to end, or whatever thoughts that we're having that we could call the static thoughts. The first important thing is to not identify with every thought that crosses your mind. So from a quantum principle, okay, a couple of quantum principles is that we exist in fields. The fields are, for the most part, invisible. And so you could call the surrounding field, we know we have a field around the body, that emanates energy. We have mind fields. And so we're literally picking up thoughts that aren't even our own. How do we know? Because if you have a disparaging thought, and an unwelcome or undesirable thought that gives you a bad feeling, it's like you didn't pick that thought, right? That's how you know that is what we call just an uninvited thought. How did it get there? Who knows? We do know that we're connected mind to mind and mind to matter. These are quantum facts right now. But to make it very, down to earth and very pragmatic, what I say, first, you don't have to identify with every thought that comes into your mind field. I call it the thoughtosphere, James, to make it a little bit lighter. The thoughtosphere surrounding you. So you don't have to identify with every thought. So what do you do with that thought? Can you control your thoughts? Not really, because as my husband and partner, Alan Collins, says, the thought gets there before you do. So who is that you watching that thought, right? Everybody's talking about mindfulness today. Well, you can not only be mindful, but you can actually develop a habit of creating a new relationship with your thoughts. So you make a distinction, and this is the point. You make a distinction between a thought that just comes in. We call it, we're here in South Florida, living in a condo over the ocean, and we're watching all the pelicans come down right now, the snowbirds, right? And they really do. They're coming down in flocks. And just like the people, right, from up northern and Midwestern places that are called, but anyway, as much as they can travel right now anyway. But we do see the birds. And these pelicans are fairly large birds, so we say, let it fly by like a bird past your window. You don't hop on the back of every pelican that crosses your path. So you don't hop on the back of every thought that comes into your thoughtosphere. You make a distinction between a thought that you initiate consciously, that you are choosing, and a thought that just visits. And this is the most simple practice, James, and this can free you from a negative reaction forever. It's not like you're not, we still have, you have a thought, you may have an emotional response to it. But when you realize this, you don't have to identify with every thought that crosses, because you are that unbounded divine awareness that individualizes as each one of us. So that's how you create a new relationship with your thoughts, so that you are in command. Because the one area that we have total sovereignty over, when we make these distinctions is our very own mind, our awareness. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, you are breaking it down. It is an interesting conversation today. We've got Dianne Collins with us today. She joins us live here on our big broadcast. And of course, Dianne is amazing. She is the creator of Quantum Think, a system of thinking, an award-winning author of the bestseller Do You Quantum Think, and also a video masterclass producer of Master Your Mind, Master Your Life. And she joins us today here on our broadcast. And what else do you have for us, my friend? Because you're laying all of this out, and this is excellent stuff.
Okay, I've got something else. I have a little something else up my sleeve. And that is, okay, what does everyone want more than anything besides money? You know, people want money. I have a whole nother conversation about money and how to relate to that in a new way, but let's just talk about relationships, right?
Okay.
And especially people think, you know, you're quarantined. There's someone online, they call it quarantinis. You know, we're not under quarantine. We live in Florida. It's somewhat open here, but, you know, everybody's being careful. But the point of the relationship, the reason I brought that up is people are spending more time together. And that's really a good thing, right? That's one of the positive things about this pandemic, is that people are getting to spend more time at home with their families and getting closer. So but what happens, just like we develop our own individual habits of thinking that we can interrupt, I call them in Quantum Think least action pathways, the least creative action, the most mechanical action, the way the thought or the energy goes just because it's been that route before, like a rut thought. But when you have this awareness that we're talking about, then you can interrupt those least action pathways. Well, we don't only have our own individual habits of thinking, we also develop habits of relating, particularly with those we are closest to, our loved ones. Yes?
Yes.
So
yes, indeed.
what do? Well, we have a practice in Quantum Think. Quantum Think is a system of principles I call distinctions in thinking that are based in science and spirituality, made practical in modern life. To make it short, 21 principles and practices. The practices are very important. Practices for the mind and awareness that put this into action in your life. So I just gave you one practice before about making a distinction between the thought you picked and one that you didn't, and let that go by like the pelican. Now, when we come to relationships, what usually happens is, you know someone, I'm sitting across the breakfast table from my husband, we're business partners, we're partners in everything for, 30 years. And you have all these assumptions, right, about the people you know. And so he starts talking. I'm using us as an example because you actually have to do this practice consciously. And the practice is called listening from not knowing. And I'll tell you how it works. So he starts talking, and I think, right, I know what he's going to say. And so I sort of like, you can maybe tune out, or you try to finish the other person's sentence, and that is very frustrating for any one of us when that happens. Or you say, oh, yeah, I know, no, yeah, I understand. But you're not actually listening. Now, what we call in Quantum Think, being in one conversation means that there's not two conversations going on, yours and the other person's. It's one field, right? Holistic and holographic, one quantum field. The listening and the speaking is really two parts of the same whole. So when we're not listening, what happens in the field, the relational field, I call it, is it separates us. It's like static in the relational field. It breaks things up between you. And what happens, James, is that the other person's talking, but you're not actually hearing what they're saying. You're not listening to their intent. You're not listening like like you don't know them. So this practice, this is the simplest practice that improves every relationship. However, you must do this consciously because we have this automatic least action pathway habit of, yeah, I know what he's going to say or she's going to say. So what do? When you catch yourself not fully being with the other person, because this is what communication, it's a field between people. It's a relational field. And so when you catch yourself in the act of, going off thinking, what am I having for lunch today or whatever, you catch yourself and you say, let me listen to this person from not knowing being a hyphenated word. Let me listen as if I've never heard this before, as if I've never met him before, as if this moment is totally new, and whatever he is expressing now, whatever she's expressing now, could be totally new. I could hear something that I've never heard before. We can connect in a new way. This is what actually is the result of listening from not knowing. And it's the simplest practice. And when you do that, James, it opens the space, and it's almost like magical that things come into the conversation, creativity, like just, unexpected kind of ideas and connections. And when people practice this, they tell us, I have the best conversation, with my son, my wife, whoever it is, that I've ever had, ever. This is what we hear from quantum thinkers.
So how do you? I guess my big thing, Dianne, is, you've described this excellently here. Our audience just is loving the crap out of this. How do you take someone who isn't a quantum thinker and make them a quantum thinker? Is that possible?
Yeah, but seriously, I mean, that's why, people put out their work, right? We each have a unique wisdom that comes through us. That's one of the quantum think 21 principles. It's called the Whole Movement of Purpose, where you get in touch with, who you are, what are the connections in your own life? What have you been brought to this earth to be able to express and enjoy and connect with everybody else? So when you say, how do you become a quantum thinker? Well, the first thing is the intent, right? Because it's personal mastery. I say, okay, I say this in my book, in my videos, I go, in case you haven't chosen a life of mastery yet, you always have another opportunity. In fact, you can choose that right now. And I say, what's the alternative? Mediocrity? Like, why wouldn't someone want to be, without sounding too trite, the best that you can be? I mean, who wouldn't want to? No, I want to be my lesser than self. No, you want to be the best that you can be, and you want to be able to be in command of that. So how do you become a quantum thinker? Is you read my book, Do You Quantum Think? I happen to have a copy of it, right? I always keep it.
Look at that. The master of the marketing strikes again.
Because it's in the sun all the time. But you read the book, Do You Quantum Think? You can go on my website and not spend any money at all and just read anything I have written. There are links to my blogs. You can watch a free episode of my video program, Master Your Mind, Master Your Life, which is all about mastering your mind, your relationships, your relationship with money, and your purpose. So, living your purpose. So, that's the wisdom that I was tapped on the shoulder and said, get this out to the world. And I say that because, James, I didn't one day sit down and say, I think I will create a new system of thinking that can help people, live a better life. No, I didn't. It was like, it just came. And I think that's what's happening with people today. And this is part of the wisdom and the benefit of quantum think is you get quiet inside so that you can hear what your next road to personal mastery is, what your next road for joy is.
Well, I'll tell you, you are amazing. I'm always blown away by what you talk to us about and some of the different things. I definitely want to have you back when we can get our when we can get my
broke up a little bit.
Are you still there, Dianne? Can you still hear us? Dianne, are you still with us here?
It's probably my